Whenever I bet, I could change the odds for every bookmaker in the country.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money, money.
Dollar, dollar.
What's going on? What's going on? What's good, the gritty gamblers, my people? We back here on a Monday, 4 to 5, man. We back here to give it to you again. It's been a long weekend. We had a ton of bets to cover. We had college football, we had soccer, we had everything around the globe, man. So we're gonna get right into it. Shout out to the brother Parlay Joe. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it tonight. He had something to deal with. He will be here on Thursday, man. Shout out to the brother. He will be here soon. Moving on to what we looking at for the recap. First things first, major thing on the recap we're going to be looking at for week 1 is going to be the massive play that we told you guys about. Georgia Tech spread and under, and on top of that, the money line even hit. It was sitting around plus 380. I mean, what a great result. It was a game in Ireland, the first game of the season. It's going to always be kind of a slog, and that's what it was. I mean, both of the first drives for each team were scripted drives, and you could tell because both teams went straight down the field and scored. But after that, it was a slog. I mean, Georgia Tech looked obviously slightly better than, unfortunately, Florida State did for Florida State fans. And DJ Uiagalelei's debut as a Florida State quarterback did not go to plan. They should win a lot of games this year. This just unfortunately was not one of them. Brent Key had them Georgia Tech boys ready to play. So shout out to them Atlanta boys. Came through, covered the spread, covered the under, and hit the money line. So what a trifecta in that game. Some of the other games were kind of, you could tell that Vegas didn't really put some of the lines right for some of these games. SMU barely survived. You have New Mexico State was like a plus, I think they were like plus 13 at one point versus Montana State, and they ended up not only covering, they almost won the game. So even Hawaii was a minus 40 spread. They didn't even get close to covering. So a lot of these spreads were way too wide for this first week. And that is something to notice that we'll eventually look at when we get into week 1 in a little bit here. Because there's a couple wide spreads, there's a couple short spreads. It's week 1, so there's going to be a lot more variation than week 0. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. Moving on to soccer recap. I mean, we had a pretty solid weekend. We gave you guys four show plays on Thursday. We gave you guys Bayer Leverkusen money line. We gave you Lille money line and Lens from money line from the French league, and we also gave you Crystal Palace money line. Crystal Palace was the only one to miss. We went 3 for 4 in the other ones. I also had a clean sweep. We've been killing soccer, like we were telling you guys over the past couple weeks. Ever since the Euros, we've been absolutely smashing everything. Pulling it up, we hit Leverkusen and PSG on Friday, which PSG, I don't really like bringing them up because they're terrible odds, but they're nice little just boost when they play those games. It's 2 weeks in a row they played on Friday. 6-0 route that they had of, it was Montpellier that they played on Friday afternoon. So yeah, that was an absolute route. But the main hits that we had were on Sunday morning. You know me, I'm a Chelsea fan. I talk about it from time to time, and I hate betting on my team. You know how it is in any sport when you bet on your team. It sucks. It's not fun to deal with. But I decided to do it just because of the situation. They're on the road. They do play better on the road than they did at home last year. And with the setup under the new manager, I thought it would be a good bet. And it did hit. It had terrible movement, but it did hit. The bets that were actually solid tracks from our movement plays that we've been doing since July were Club Brugge in the Belgium league. I told you we've been tracking really well in the non-European leagues. Club Brugge in the Belgium league. We did FC Groningen in the Dutch league. Both of those are non-European top 5 leagues. We've been tracking really well. The main thing with those leagues is if the odd movement is there, the money is going to be there. And that's when I'm going to generally put a bet on one of those teams. So if you're looking into those leagues to bet, teams you're going to want to look at are going to be like Antwerp and Club Brugge and in the Belgium Pro League, if you're going to be looking at odds movement. And then if you're going to be looking at the Dutch Eredivisie, you're going to want to look at PSV, you're going to want to look at Feyenoord, you're going to be looking at potentially Ajax, but Ajax is kind of falling off right now recently. So those are kind of some of the big teams you're going to look at. If you're going to start betting on soccer in some of those leagues, you want to start with the big teams at first because they're more likely easier to be known and hit and then move from there. So those are the recommendations I'd have for those. We also hit, I told you about Lens. I played them on Sunday. And then Bayern Munich, I didn't even want to bring them up on the show, but they did hit. I didn't want to bring them up on when we were talking about them last week. They've been really shaky defense all year. They finally, I don't even have the words. They won 3-2. Okay, they won 3-2. They got it done. But It was a rough watch. Terrible. Vincent Company, they need some work on defense. For real. One thing I will say in this soccer recap is the Serie A is officially deaded for the life of me. It's the one thing that no matter the tracking, no matter how everything goes, we just can't hit it. So we're just not going to touch Serie A soccer from now on. We're just going to have to dead that for a few weeks. And then, of course, like I said, intercontinental cups have been tracking really well in terms of Europe and South America. South America won't be back in action until September, so we will wait on that, as well as Europe. We will keep tracking that throughout the week. I'll probably swing back on Thursday with a couple plays for some of the upcoming competitions, because I hate betting second legs. They're not really good in value because some teams play for the win, some teams play for the draw, and you're only getting certain kind of betting options when you're betting, such as like a three-way money line bet. It's not really worth it. So I'd stay off a lot of these second legs that are going to be happening this week in terms of the Champions League, Europa League, and the Conference League in Europe. But yeah, that's soccer. That's soccer. Moving on in the recap. We're going to be pulling up MLB now, baseball. Aaron Judge hits his 50th home run of the year already. I mean, he is just smashing baseballs right now. It's kind of scary. When you have Juan Soto hitting right in front of you, too, they can't really do much about it in terms of lineup protection. They have to deal with you regardless and kind of pitch to you. So he's getting a lot better pitches than he probably would have gotten last year, and he's doing good work with it. So shout out Aaron Judge. The Yankees and the Orioles are in a huge dogfight right now for the AL East pennant. I still lean the Yankees right now, but the Orioles have a more consistent overall lineup 1 through 9 in terms of batting, in my opinion. Yankees have a much better top of the order, and that does matter. That does matter. As well as pitching, I guess you could say it's kind of a pick 'em. They're about a game and a half out right now. The Orioles, they've been teeter-tottering both teams throughout the year. It's going to come down to one of them who wins that AL East. I still lean the Yankees right now, but I wouldn't be shocked, obviously, if the Orioles wins that division. Moving on to the rest of MLB that we got here. The Diamondbacks are the hottest team in baseball right now on a 6-game win streak. I'm not saying they're going to repeat what they're doing last year, but their heat-up pattern is getting very, very similar to what they did last year when they ended up going to the World Series. So that is something we're going to want to look at throughout the next upcoming months. Their lineup has been mostly consistent. Their pitching has been... When you look at their pitching overall, you would think it's been kind of so-so. I mean, Jordan Montgomery just got put to the bullpen. He's not pitching well for them this year. But their main guys are still going for them, especially the guys that they had from last year. Plesat's been doing okay this year. They still have Zach Gallen, obviously, pitching the best he can. So the Diamondbacks are going to be there. I mean, the top 3 teams in the NL West are all going to be in the playoffs this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them are going to be representing the NL in the World Series. It's highly likely at this point. The Padres have, in my opinion, the rotation to do it with the moves they made at the deadline. When you're in third in that position, you're going to already be fighting. You're not going to have a home advantage in some games. It might not matter, but the Dodgers, they're known to choke. They might choke this year. Shohei is going to be a big help. Shohei's first playoff experience is going to be big, so I don't know. The West is kind of weird because I think, obviously, the NL World Series representatives coming out of the West, I just don't know which one of those teams because the Padres and the Diamondbacks have been crazy hot and crazy streaky since the beginning of June, but mostly streaky in terms of hot streaks. So we'll see. They caught up to the Dodgers like crazy in terms of the division lead too. Like it's actually a close division fight now. So that's something we're gonna also keep tracking throughout the rest of the regular season as we start to wind down. And then, of course, I don't think we covered it too much last week, but the Mariners did fire their coach. For one of the best pitching staffs in the league, they, for some reason, just can't get the lineup right in terms of batting, overall, just like... I hope for Seattle's fans' sake that they get it right because that pitching staff is so elite, and that's what you need to make a run in the playoffs. You need a pitching staff like that. So if they're able to consistently fix their lineup here, because I mean I know they've dealt with injuries all year in terms of their batters, and they tried to make some trades at the deadline, but if they can fix it, they let's see, let me double check how many games back are they? They're about 4.5 games back of the Astros right now. I don't think they're catching the Astros. The Astros passed them, and they're not looking back. The Astros are playing their best baseball at this time of the year in the past couple months versus what they were at the beginning of the year. So it might be a lost cause for them. They're not like the Rangers, who are really a lost cause, 10 games under 500, but it might be a lost cause for them because 4.5 games with the Astros, that they're going to hold that. I think they're going to hold that. So Yeah, the Mariners, they made a choice firing their manager. They probably said we're gonna dead this year, move on. They beat some injuries up. I think they could still make some moves, but I understand the front officing decision. Is that what they were thinking? All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here. Moving on, moving on. All right, so we're gonna take a general glancing look at like overall week one for college football. It's a huge week. There's more games than I can count to cover, but let's pull this up. College football week one. We'll start with the top 25 games first. So we have about four top 25 teams playing on Thursday night. All those games are going to be not worth it in my opinion because besides besides North Carolina State, you're not really getting any spreads that are going to be worth touching. They're all going to be over 30, over 40, over 50 points. You're getting Mizzou at home. You're getting Utah at home. They're all their home openers for all these teams. If you're gonna bet on one of these Thursday night games, I would actually hop out of the top 25 and look at a game like North Carolina versus Minnesota. That game was really interesting to me, and I put it in here earlier because the line did flip real early. And let's put it this way: Minnesota was favored for most of the summer, about 2 point favorite, 1 point favorite, but favored most of summer. As soon as week one actually starts, the line flips, and now North Carolina's favored. Now, Minnesota did have a lot of money on it when I looked at it this morning through some of the betting handles when I was looking at it through various betting carriers and all this stuff. Like if I pull it back up right now here, let's see, Saturday. Let's look at that. Thursday actually, that specific game. Let's see, Thursday, that specific game. So we going to North Carolina versus Minnesota. So let's see the money looking right now. So the money's sitting at spread is 55.73. So 55% of the money is on 55% of the bets are on Minnesota spread, but 73% of the money. So that kind of gives me a trend that it's a little bit of public money on there, but there is sharp money on Minnesota, and that's kind of worrying because this is a line manipulation tactic. The line flipped how it did with many being favored all summer, and then last second, North Carolina's favored. There's something here, and what I do think North Carolina is the better team for the reference. I do. So with that being said, they should win the game, but money never lies, and point proven because when you flip it to the money line, the bet percentage and the money line for North Carolina in that situation is 47.97. So 47% of the bets, 97% of the money. So you're getting a contradictory line right there. It's a rat line, as what Parlay and I would call it a ratata. So at that point, I'm kind of iffy on that. I lean UNC, but yeah, that game's definitely the money is ratty, super ratty. Sorry about that. But the pick going into it is going to be right now UNC. We're going to be having our show on Thursday, so we'll come back with a final pick on Thursday night. But early lean right now is definitely going to be UNC money line if you can get it at a decent price. The line's going to be moving all week, so that's something definitely to watch. Another spread and line that I like this week on Thursday is going to be, let me pull it back up so we can have the money on that game. Let's see, let's see. Yeah, Jacksonville State, Coastal Carolina. Line movement has been it's kind of similar, honestly. Actually, no. Public is all over Jacksonville State money line, so that's going to be something to worry about. Well, like I said, we'll track that going into Thursday as well. It starts at the same time as the UNC Minnesota game, so we'll track both of those. We might even make a two game parlay from something of those two, but bet percentage, money percentage in Jacksonville State spread is 69.89. And why I keep bringing up bet percentage and money percentage is if you have a low bet percentage and a high money percentage, that's a high likelihood either a whale better or a sharp better is betting on that game, and that's a game you want to actually be betting on, in my personal opinion. If you have a high bet percentage and a low money percentage, it is a public bet, something you generally want to stay off, and I just would avoid betting. That's how I read those types of spreads. You can read them in other ways in terms of if, for example, how Jackson State's line is, it's at 69%, 89%. You could see a mix of saying that could be whale, that could be public, that could be sharp, that could be anything. But at the end of the day, the lines you want to target is, for example, Georgia's text line last week was, we were talking about it last week, was like 29-37 or something slight, but something in their favor on the spread. And I love those type of lines. It's not saying they're always gonna hit, but you have a higher likelihood of something like that heading than a fully public bet, because it's lost its value at that point. Looking at Thursday night to see if there's any other interesting games, spreads. Yeah, Mizzou 46 points. I mean, they should definitely cover it, to be honest, but I'm not really feeling betting a 46-point spread. Or same thing with Kansas, 45-point spread. So yeah, with that, we'll probably move on to, let's see, Saturday. Let's pull up Saturday now. Some of the money in the spreads that we can look at. One game that is interesting to me immediately, and I think is probably should be the most talked about game of the week in terms of headlines, in terms of who loses, everything like that, is Miami and Florida. Now, Miami's supposed to be good this year. They've had 2 top 10 classes come in. Mario Cristobal, this is supposed to be the year where they take that step. They brought in a big transfer quarterback in Cam Ward. This is supposed to be their year. They're already preseason top 25 ranked. They're playing on the road at Florida. Now, the one thing I'll say is the money line, I haven't been able to take a look at it so far. So hopefully, obviously, we'll take a look at it Thursday before. But the spread movement right now is actually really in Florida's favor. It's 59-76. I mean, 53 to 76. 53% of the bets, 76% of the money. So either it's a mixture of sharp and whale. I think there's some public money on Florida, obviously, but it's not enough to where it's a huge difference, because there's still 47% of the bets on Miami, but they only have 24% of the money. Spread's only 3 points. Spread's only 2 points. Now, let's see, how has it moved? It's 2.5 points. So you're about a field goal spread right now. That Florida money line's not looking too bad, especially because they're at home now. Am I a guy that wants to bet on Billy Napier? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But betting is betting, and you gotta. How I view betting is you gotta look at the numbers and take kind of that stuff out of context sometimes, because you can't get blinded by it. You're gonna make the wrong decision when you're betting. You gotta go. I'm a numbers guy specifically, personally. You're gonna want to follow the numbers and follow the money, and that's how I am with line movement and these types of like action stuff and like betting handles. Is follow where the money is. You're generally gonna be going the right way. But Florida is probably a lean. Yeah, Florida's probably a lean. I was looking at Miami early season, but you can see why they're not favored. They're on the road. It's going to be the Swamp. The Swamp's a horrible place to play on the road. It's week 1 on top of that. Florida, I think they generally actually look decent in week 1s. I think they did that versus Utah last year. Yeah, I remember that. So, yeah, this might be a decent spot for them. Moving back up to the 12 o'clock games, let's see if there's anything really crazy worth covering up here. Yes, there is. I knew I saw one. So, one thing I've been following for a couple of weeks that's been interesting to me is West Virginia's spread has been dropping, slowly trickling throughout the past couple of weeks. It opened up at around like 10.5. It's sitting at about 8.5 right now. They're going on the road to play Penn State. Penn State's not going to put up a whole bunch of points. I mean, unless they run the ball like crazy. If they run the ball like crazy, they can. But Alar's not going to throw the ball over the park like crazy. So, for example, if I pull up, the over-under right now, the money's about 50-50 split. It's a rat line, so it makes sense. You don't really want to touch that. But the main thing that's popping up to me here is, oh, wow. Yeah, right here. The public is all over Penn State. 81-79 on the spread, 90-96 on the money line. So I'm seeing a small percentage of 19-21 on the West Virginia spread, and I kind of like that action, especially when you see the line movement, because it's been dropping slowly and trickling throughout the past couple of weeks. This is definitely a spot. I'm not saying Penn State's on upset alert. It's similar to what the Georgia Tech spot was. It's even a lower spread, to be quite honest with you, too. I like the talent that West Virginia has coming back, too. Garrett Green at quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so this could be a solid spot, and since it's a Saturday game, we'll definitely be able to keep tracking it into Thursday. I just like how West Virginia's trended the past couple of weeks in that spot. The money line has gotten good movement. Their spread's gotten solid movement dropping. That's something we're definitely watching out for. Let's see what we got next on the slate for Saturday. Ooh, this is an interesting game. Georgia and Clemson in Atlanta. Oh, if my app wants to work and let me click on it, so we can take a look at it. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Let's see these numbers. So, oof. Yeah, sitting right now at Georgia 60% on the bets, 74% on the money. So it's semi-public. Could have a little bit of whales on it. You never know, but I don't really like the movement on in terms of that aspect. The line movement, not the sharp movement, but the line movement. It's only moved about 1 point. I'm kind of indifferent to this line. I'm indifferent to it because it could be like a 17-point Georgia win. It could be like a 20-point Georgia. We're gonna have to see the Georgia that comes out. They're gonna have a new pass catching weapons. Well, not really new. They've been there. They're gonna have to play more because Brock Bowers is gone. Lad McConkey is gone. I think Kendall Milton is gone. You have now they brought in ETN Jr. They still have Oscar Delp. So they have players and performers that are gonna play there. It's just gonna be a change for Carson Beck. So that's something we're gonna have to see. Cade Klubnik in his third year starting, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully they can do something this year. That Clemson defense is going to be elite, so I hope for their defense's sake that their offense gets it together, because if their offense gets it together, Clemson's underrated this year, man. I can't lie. I'm not trying to be a hater in terms of I'm not going to hate on them. Like, I can be objective, even being an ACC fan. I can see Clemson's clearly got something on that defensive side of the ball that's looking special, so shout out Clemson. I can see what they're doing over there. I just don't know if this is going to be their day. You're playing Georgia. It's Georgia, man. Sometimes you just got to chalk one up to the game, you know? Let's see what we got next here on Saturday. Let's see. We got all the interesting games at night and moving on Sunday. Man, these TV people, they got to get their views. Shout out, the Big Four now because they killed the Pac-12. But that wasn't a joke. Okay. Sorry to the Pac-12 schools. Well, Pac-2 now. Ooh, this looks interesting. This looks like it could be a fun line. Ooh, that's terrible. So it's early line movement, but Houston UNLV. Houston has a horrible bet percentage, the money percentage on that game. You're looking at 25% of the money, 25% of the bets, 49% of the money. That's disgraceful. That's terrible. It is early, so that's something we're going to have to lay off. Their lines drop too as the favorite, so UNLV might be an early trend right there. That's actually something we might have to take a look at. Could be very, very interesting. Yeah, a lot of the big teams are obviously going to have 30 to 40 point spreads. So one thing, unless they're playing other big, for example, right here we have Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Yeah, so come on, man, they can't. Oh yeah, that's a rat. Sorry, early reaction to the line that we were looking at, cause as you can hear from me now, Texas A&M 63% of the bet percentage, 93% of the money. Meanwhile, you move to the money line, Notre Dame, 28% of the bets, 92% of the money. So that's a rat line. We don't like that type of stuff where you have a ton of money on one side, ton of money on the other side in terms of they're both gonna get a ton of action, the money line and the spread in a close game because it's a 2.5 point spread. Texas A&M is favored. I lean Texas A&M even though it's looking rough because the spread still is what it is. People generally, when I see that type, even though I think it's a rat, I generally do think people are chasing when they want the plus money odds on the Notre Dame being underdogs. So that is something I do at least keep as a grain of salt in the back of my mind when I see that type of rat line situation. But I do lean Texas A&M just because they're playing at home in this situation, and they have tons of talent. Elko, not recruits, but he's walking into a situation that has a lot of talent in his first year coaching there. So I like them at home on Saturday night. And do we have anything else I really want to cover? Yeah, I do want to cover the Sunday game actually. Now that we're here, so let me cover that one Sunday game if we can find it. Yeah, LSU and USC. I wanted to look at this game because yeah, it's dropping like crazy. I don't know why, but yeah, USC opened with a plus 80 money line. They're at plus 155 now. If you look at their spread, they opened at plus 5.5. They dropped to plus 4.5. If they come back up, it could be nothing, but that's interesting, man. It's a semi-home game. They're playing West Coast. I mean, they're not playing in LA. I think it's in Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. So they're playing West Coast. Yeah, man. USC, they're kind of like under the radar this year just because Caleb Williams got drafted, and Nussmeier is good for LSU, but I mean he hasn't played a full season yet, so this is gonna be a test for him. It is. So we're gonna keep tracking that going to Thursday, and we're gonna see because that could be an interesting spot. It could be an interesting upset spot. You never know. You never know. So we're gonna keep tracking that, but. That's an overall view. There's so many college football games to go through. I can't go through them all, but those are some of the spots and some of the closer games that I thought were interesting that we could take a look at. I did want to bring those up. Let's see. Oh, also, while we're here, since we're doing football talk, I might as well just cover both of the non-Sunday games from week 1. So we got Week 1's in 2 weeks, and I'm just gonna do a quick preview for you guys real quick of the NFL Week 1. We got Ravens Chiefs on the first game of the season, Thursday Night Football, and then on the very next night we got Packers Eagles in Brazil. So that's kind of what I wanted to highlight. I think it's pretty cool that I think this is the first time the NFL has ever gone to Brazil. That's gonna be sick. And you got both teams. Chiefs are -3.5, -3 favorite. Technically as the home team versus the Ravens. Well, no. My apologies. They are the home team. It's not the Brazil game. So they are the home team. And then you have the Eagles, who are technically the home team in Brazil, also a 3-point favorite versus the Packers. Now, if I'm looking at it early, I'm a very big believer in the Packers this year. I mean, you can write them down for their win total. I think it was at 11, if I'm not mistaken, or 10.5. I would take the Packers win total this year. I think they're going to be phenomenal. Jordan Love, with the pieces they have around him, they built the O-line. They redrafted Jordan Morgan. I think that's the guy. I think the guy that they took in the first round at left tackle to replace Bakhtiari. Then they also have a solid O-line in front of that as well. Their defense got even better with the signing of Xavier McKinney at safety. They have, if I'm not mistaken, did they bring in that linebacker? I don't remember if they brought in this one linebacker, so I'm going to leave that alone. But they upgraded their running back core as well with Josh Jacobs in the backfield. So I really see that. Well, Packers fans might not think they upgraded because some of them might be sentimental to Aaron Jones. But I think it's going to be an upgrade for what they're going to be able to do scheme-wise with Josh Jacobs back there. He's a motor house, and he doesn't get hurt as often. And he can handle a lot more carries. So that's something that like you can notice with LaFleur. He might try to get him the ball more than he could Aaron Jones because of durability issues. So that's something to look out for in that Packers scheme throughout the year. But I like the Packers week 1. I think they might be able to upset the Eagles. It's only a 3-point spread right now. Sitting about plus money, about 130, 135. I definitely think the Packers, I mean, it's technically a neutral site game. So you can take away that home game, road game, whatever. It's technically a neutral site game. And I like the way the Packers close the season. I like the way the talent that they have all over the field. Yeah, I'm leaning the Packers in that one early. It's obviously we have 2 weeks, so we're going to keep tracking that one and seeing how the line moves. But I like the Packers early. Ravens, Chiefs. If I'm being honest, this does give the classic revenge game that Mahomes beats you in the playoffs, and then he'll lose to you in the regular season, and then he'll probably beat you in the playoffs again. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Ravens also pulled an upset here, but at home, I do think the Chiefs end up winning. They should win. They lost last year as a season opener to the Lions, and I think they had that stuck in their head to start off right and start off successful, and they've prepped all season for it. Yeah, I definitely think the Chiefs are going to get right here and then end up handling business at home versus the Ravens. So, previewing those 2 games, we're going to keep tracking them for the next couple of weeks, but I did want to bring those 2 up for you guys. All right, let's take a look. What we got next? Let's take a look at some MLB for the week, some baseball that we got covering for the week. Oh, let's see. baseball. Oh, they don't want me to look at the baseball today, but I'm pulling it up. Don't worry, guys. All right. So yeah, I wanted to look at some of Tuesday's games just because I mean, if we look at any of tonight's games, it's not really too much action that's really worth value. I did like some of the movement on the Tigers early, but they're already down 1-0, so you might be able to get them at plus money. It's still only the second inning, so it's not like it's crazy late, but they are down, so that is something to take note of. The movement model was not that good today from some of the teams. A lot of the teams that had good movement are getting crushed right now because the Pirates had some good movement. They're down 4 right now. You have the Yankees had good movement and they won today, but the Guardians in game 2 had good movement after losing in game 1 today to the Royals. They're down. You got the Twins who had some really good movement versus the Braves. They're down. Let's see who else we got here. Where are they? I'm looking for one team in specific. The Phillies, who had great movement today, they're in a fight still with the Astros. So yeah, the movement was not good for the MLB this week. And to be honest with you, it hasn't been good for the past couple of weeks. And I personally started to slightly lay off it as I go on because the soccer game has just been killing it. That's really where the bread and butter is right now. We've been crushing it with the soccer movement. But yeah, the line movement with the MLB hasn't been too great. A couple of the hits in terms of like, for example, the quickest thing I would say if you want to look at like numbers and quickest way to like, if you're building a baseball parlay, and a tip I'll give you is if you're looking for like one of your hitter props and your hitter betters, what I would do is use an app like ESPN, go look at that pitcher, look at them versus the team that they're playing, so whichever hitter that you're wanting to bet on, see if they have solid stats. If they have more than double digit at bats versus that pitcher and they're hitting at least 300 to 400, I'd put in that hit bet every time because you're playing the odds at that point. There's nothing more you can do to get a hitter bet right. And normally when I've done that, I remember the last time I really looked into it and did it hardcore, I bet on Ryan Mountcastle and Jonathan India when they were playing with the Reds and the Orioles on it was like a double up, and they didn't win the game, didn't hit in terms of the parlay, but those specific parts of the hit within the first like 3-4 innings. So that's something you'd want to keep looking at in terms of just keep tracking how these pitchers are. And if they have a long enough history versus these hitters, I'd take the chance because you never know. Usually the hitter is going to be in that pitcher's head if they're hitting so consistently against that pitcher. So that's something I would take notice of. Moving on for tomorrow for MLB, I'm going to see if there's any like solid early movement. There's not going to be any really good movement because it hasn't been until tomorrow. But one thing I'll take note of is you do have Verlander versus Nola on the mound for the Astros and the Phillies. That's going to be really, really interesting. That's a TBS game. Actually, there is a little bit movement on that. The Phillies do not have good movement early. Let's see what else we got here. Let me pull this up. So... yeah, the Phillies early movement is already bad for tomorrow. Yeah, it is. That's interesting. I mean, they got crazy movement today with Wheeler on the mound, and I mean Nola's not a crazy drop off at all. So if he's not better, so yeah, we'll stay off that for now because it is early. It is early. The Yankees, who do they have on the mound? Garrett Cole. Sheesh. Sheesh. I mean, I'll say this. The Yankees are dropping, but the Yankees should be a lock tomorrow. You got Patrick Corbin on the mound for my Nationals. Brother is 3-12 on the year for a reason, okay? For a reason. I can remember in the past couple of years when Patrick Corbin wasn't on the mound, when one of my friends would not hit me up, and their team is playing the Nats, and they're trying to talk to me like they're bragging about they won, and I look who's on the mound, and I'm like, why are you bragging about hitting off Corbin, man? Come on, man. I thought we're better than this. It's Patrick Corbin, man. Come on. I can't tell you the amount of times I've raged over the Nationals over him that I'm numb to it, so... the Yankees, even though they have bad movement tomorrow, they should be solid. They should be pretty solid. Oh, I hate Patrick Corbin, man. Moving on. Ooh, that's disgusting. Padres who have Dylan Cease on the mound tomorrow. Disgusting movement versus Mike McCallicus throws butterbean balls sometimes, man. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. But he has a 5 ERA for a reason, and the Padres have been in good form. I don't know why that odd movement for tomorrow for them is so bad, but unless they must have an injury or something. But that's something to look into tomorrow. You know we say that a lot, but early lean on tomorrow versus the Padres. They're already up today, but we're looking at tomorrow. That could be very, very peculiar. Interesting. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then the Dodgers in the last game of the night, ESPN Plus game. You're gonna have the Dodgers versus the Orioles. Jack Flaherty on the mound. He's been pitching really, really well this year, so I got to give him credit. Minus 200, probably something I'd stay off of because you're playing a good team and you're minus 200. That's called the Dodgers tax. It's not worth it. Don't touch that tomorrow night. That's ridiculous. You're playing the Orioles, man. Why are they minus 200? That's ridiculous. That's actually ridiculous. Come on. Come on. Yeah, no. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's see. Diamondbacks could be solid. The only thing that's tough is Manaya's on the mound for the Mets, and he's been that pitch this year that you got to give him credit. He's been going, wheeling, dealing, kind of doing kind of like the, you know what I know it is but that's kind of what he's doing. He's not throwing like the rocket beams. He's throwing like it's kind of slowly popping out of his shoulder, but he's getting the job done with that. And he's been the Mets' most consistent pitcher all year, especially through the second half of the year when they were making that run into getting into position where they're now over 500. So they're still playing one of the hottest teams in baseball in the Diamondbacks, but that could be interesting. Mets already have slight rough movement for them, so the Diamondbacks might actually be the play tomorrow night. Yeah, that's solid. Diamondback. I'm trying to hop on that groove with them, so I might play that myself tomorrow night. All right. Do we want to track any more MLB? Do we want to track any more MLB? Nah, we'll move on for the MLB. Like I said, line movement's been crazy bad recently in terms of how the movement tracking model has been for MLB, but the reverse of it has been in soccer. So, actually, we'll hold off on the soccer. We'll save the soccer for the end of the show. I did want to get this in because we didn't highlight it as much on the show. We just gave like a quick talk about it, but I did actually see it myself, so I did want to bring it up. The UFC Fight Night that happened over the weekend, whoo, that main event was brutal, man. You had Jared Cannonier, who's top 5 middleweight in the world, fighting Kai Borralho. I'm sorry if I butchered the name, but brother is a slick Brazilian. He got caught a couple times by Cannonier. I mean, top 5 middleweight. You wouldn't expect him not to. And Cannonier has power because when he was connecting, there was this one shot of Kai when he got hit and he kind of like stuttered. His legs kind of fell back and he was like wobbling around I think it was like in the middle of round 2 and he was just wobbling around. And then by the end of it, he hit Jared with a shot that was so hard. There was 2 of them. The first one was where you just see a huge blood clot just fly out of his mouth. And you're like, ah. You saw his mouth guard drop multiple times from hits in this fight too. But the one that got me, if you guys got time, if y'all watching this, when we finish up here, look up the UFC Fight Night finish. Because it didn't end in a finish. But if you look up Jared Cannonier or one of their names, you'll see it. He landed right on the chin on Cannonier, and Cannonier literally stops. His knees buckle, body falls back, his eyes roll in the back of his head, lands on the ground, woke him up. The ground literally woke him up. So, I mean, I couldn't. It was not safe for him to continue being in that fight, but he ended up pushing through. He got up, and more power to him. He finished the fight. He ended up losing it, and he'll probably end up losing his rank because of it, but he put on a good performance. I got to give him credit for that. In the semi-main, Tabitha Ritchie winning by unanimous decision. It looked kind of obvious. I mean, she was sitting around minus 165 in that fight, so it looked like she was going to be solid to win that fight throughout. And she ended up winning it and clutching it versus Angela Hill, so she did do that. Shout out to that. One that was a solid odds upset was Gerard Marshall has the most submissions in middleweight history for the UFC. He tapped out Edmund Shabazian, who was a minus 310 favorite. I mean, he's been bumming Edmund Shabazian. He's been favored. He's supposed to be this. He was at one point supposed to be a big prospect. He was undefeated at one point, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, now he's fighting on a lot of these undercards because he just can't. His last big fight was against Imamov, and Imamov KO'd him, and that was 3 years ago almost. So yeah, he's toast as a semi prospect. You're 13-5, brother. Sayonara. You were minus 335. I mean, if a couple fights, he's probably gonna be on the cut list. To be honest with you, for sure. That's kind of how it is in the UFC. If you're that bad for that long and you're a wasted potential, they're not going to be around with you. I mean, you saw how they treated Moikaev. He was bad behind the scenes, and he was winning fights, and they cut him. He went back to Brave FC to try to earn another UFC contract. So, yeah, the UFC is not playing around. They got to almost semi-monopoly on this fight game, and they're not playing games with these fighters, man. If you're either in or you're out. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's what it is. For UFC, we won't have really too much coverage for the next couple of weeks. It's not really a big fight night for roughly another 2 weeks until about the same weekend as NFL kickoff, which is when we have the Gilbert Burns Sean Brady fight card. That fight's actually going to be really interesting. I'm excited for it. It's going to be grappling. Gilbert Burns needs to use his grappling in MMA, man. Please. You are a ADDC. You are a ADDC World Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion. Come on now. Now, he is not the favorite in that fight. You actually have Sean Brady who's favored in that fight, which he should be. Sean Brady should be the favorite in that fight. He's more well-rounded, and he actually will use his ground game in that fight. You got, we see Natalia Silva versus Jessica Andrade. Jessica Andrade has been through the ringer. She is plus money here, and she always has a spark for a KO, so that's something we're going to have to look out for. The rest of the card, we're going to bring up more as we come back up in the next couple of weeks, but I do want to take a look at that one fight because that's actually a big fight for a fight night card, so I wonder, is this in the, let's take a look, is this in the Apex? It is in the Apex. All right, sometimes the bigger fight night cards they put on the fight nights that are not on the Apex that actually travel on the tour, so I wanted to double check that. That's cool. Shout out Vegas, you get a little treat. All right, but wrapping up, I did just want to take a quick look at some of the soccer plays that we're going to kind of offer you guys for the week. The one thing that is interesting this week is I'm kind of going to stay off of Intercontinental, like I told you, because of the legs in first and second leg. It's the second leg. We did really well with the first leg, clean sweep, 5 for 5 on the first sweep last on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, in terms of the South American competition, we went another 5 for 5 on picks. So we've been cleaning up on Intercontinental Cups. I just hate touching second legs, so let's stay off that. What we're going to take a look at, actually, is we do have an English Cup competition on Tuesday, so tomorrow that take a look at in the afternoon. There's a couple games I wanted to highlight that are kind of moving. One thing that I've noticed is Brighton is already at minus 500 money line, so that is ridiculous pricing. I'm not going to touch that price. What I will check to see, though, is the price of their spread. If it's under minus 200, like if it's a minus 170, if it's a minus 150, then Brighton spread like -1. If it's in a -1, is like a safe lock, in my opinion. Brighton plays fantastic football. They've made key signings. They're actually like, they're looking more like a top 6 side than like one of the mid-table sides recently in the past couple of years. It's kind of scary, especially with the signings that they made this summer. So let's pull up the odds right now. We're gonna shout out FanDuel. That's who I'm using right now. Let's pull up, no promo, no free promo, but that's who I'm using. They hold the money, I can't lie, so we gotta give them credit. Moving up, let's check Brighton. Where are Brighton? Right here. Oh my God, they got it on minus 650. That's disgusting. I mean, they should run. They're not playing like a crazy side, but I respect humans, man. See, Brighton spread. I'm locking it in right now. Brighton spread minus 175. Yeah, let's take that. You kidding me? Obviously. Crystal Palace has been moving pretty well too. One thing I think could be interesting is Wolves is gonna have to fight back. They're gonna be trying to fight back after the loss that they had to Chelsea. Embarrassing loss in the second half. They're playing at home versus Burnley. Yeah, I like Wolves. I think they're gonna bounce back there. Also, if you come back here, Brighton's had ridiculous line movement. Tons of money have been gone on them, and that's following our model. So I like that in terms of the model right there. Brighton spread. That's kind of what I do with the non-European sides when I'm betting on like a Dutch side, or if I'm betting on like a Belgian Pro League side. If they're a huge spread, say like Feyenoord in the Dutch league, if they're minus 700, I'm gonna go bet on their spread. I'm gonna bet like -2, -1 if I can. If I can get -1 at a decent price under -200 odds at like -175, -165, it's a great parlay builder, and it's gonna be a perfect like base of your parlay to build it up in terms of other odds. It's so great to have. Wolves is actually on Wednesday, so I'm gonna stay off that. I'll probably go back to the Crystal Palace well again. Unfortunately, they're better than they played recently. I'm sorry. The money line is taxed, but if you're gonna building a parlay, it's solid. I necessarily wouldn't want to touch their spread necessarily, just because Norwich is a decent championship side. They're not like a League One side or anything like that, so I'd stay off the spread. But Palace spread, Palace money line isn't like, if you need like a base, if you don't want something like by itself, it's -250, so it has no value by itself. But if you need like a base for your parlay, Palace could be pretty decent. Do we have any other options here that we want to take a look at? Not really. I mean, you got Coventry Town. You got some of these like championship sides playing lower level championship sides and League One sides. But the main game I wanted to highlight was Brighton, because if you're betting any other games, Brighton -1 at -175 on FanDuel, steal, absolute steal. Let's see, but yeah, I think that's just about it. I just want to give you guys a quick soccer coverage. We'll have more for you guys, of course, next week. I mean, on Thursday, of course, for the Gritty Gamblers. Just unfortunately, but we will be back on Thursday, man. Parlay and I will be back. That's the Gritty Gamblers, man, and we will catch y'all soon. Give me 1 second.
Whenever I bet, I could change the odds for every bookmaker in the country.
Tell them to bring me my money.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.